Barry loser. Lamb not a loser. Spell checked by Jim Smith. Being a loser. I've never minded that my name's Barry Loser because my coolness has always cancelled it out, but ever since Darren Darrenofsky joined school with his horrible little crocodile face, he's been completely ruining my life about it. He's always slurping on cans of Frankel, then burping in my ear. When I complain that the burp is really loud and stinks of Frankel, he does this annoying little dance and sings Barry Loser's a Loser to the tune of Happy Birthday to You, which doesn't work because it's got too many syllables. I was in the playground the other day when a ring pull hit me on the back of my neck and went down my jumper and into my pants. I turned round and it was Darren Darrenofsky again. Nice really long shoelaces, Barry Loser, he said, then he did a burp that went on for about an hour. That's how long they are, he said when it was finished. At least I don't look like a poo-bum crocodile, I said back, which sounded a bit loserish when it came out of my mouth, but it confused him enough so that I could run off before he threw his whole can of Frankel at me. Darren had got me worried that my laces were too long though, and I spent the whole of maths measuring shoelace lengths and came to the conclusion that he was right, so when I got home Elle cut a bit off each one. By the way, I'm a child genius, so Elle didn't just throw the leftovers away, I came up with an amazing use for them. I planted them in the back garden like they were worms and watched from my window with my dad's binocs as the little birds tried to eat them. Do you want me to grab the end of Darren's nose and stick it in a letterbox? Asked my friend Bunky as we walked home from school the next day. Bunky isn't his real name, by the way, it's what his mum calls him. Luckily he hasn't heard my mum calling me Snooky Flumps, although come to think of it, nothing could be worse than being called Barry Loser. I'm gonna do something about my loserish name before Darren completely ruins my life about it even more. The Keel Gang. Before Darren, I was always one of the cool people at school. Not that I'll ever say the word cool, I say Keel. It's something me and Bunky came up with because in our favorite TV show, Future Rat Boy, he says it that way. The Keel Gang is mostly just me and Bunky hanging out together, watching Future Rat Boy and playing at Keel. I'm Future Rat Boy and Bunky is his annoying sidekick, not Bird, except Bunky's not a bird and he doesn't say not after everything. One of the other things the Keel Gang does is annoy people down my street by knocking on their doors and running off, then phoning them up asking to speak to Poo-Poo. Bunky's favorite person to annoy is Mrs. Trumpet Face, who lives in the block of flats at the end of the road with her twin kids and no husband. In the summer we play wall tennis against her wall until she yells out of the window for us to stop, which is when we run off shouting Trumpet Fac giggling and blowing off with fear. Once when it snowed we painted ourselves blue and pretended we'd frozen to death outside her flat. When she saw us she screamed and started giving Bunky the kiss of life until we got up and ran off shouting Trumpet Fac. Ha ha, she kissed you. You're married to Mrs. Trumpet Face now. I said to Bunky after that to annoy him. I think he secretly liked it though, because for about a year every time I called him Bunky he said, my name's Mr. Trumpet Face now, which ended up really annoying me instead. At lunchtimes the Keel Gang does TV shows in the playground for the other kids. Our favorite is Vending Machine Mom, which is where play my mum, who's turned into a vending machine, and Bunky plays me. It's based on how my mom says she feels like a vending machine, always giving me food and ironed clothes and packed lunches without me ever saying thanks. I made the vending machine costume out of the box the new washing machine came in after our old one exploded foam everywhere. The costume's so brilliant and amazing that the first time I wore it Jocelyn Twiggs thought it was real and followed me around all lunch trying to get a can of Diet Frankel out of it. We were in the playground acting out Vending Machine Mum the other day and just getting to the bit where she's making my bed while I'm completely not helping at all, when Darren Darrenofsky's crocodile face snuffled into the front row and started burping Frankel gas into the scene. "Me-oh, what's that me?" I said, "Which maybe your loser son weed the bed," said Darren, and he threw a ring pull at me, which amazingly went into the coin slot of my costume and everyone laughed. "Nice shot, Darren," said Tracy Pilchard, who was in the audience with her stupid gang, which is her, Donatella and Sharonella. They call themselves the cool girls, which is a completely uncool name in my opinion. Yeah, said Donatella. Nice Shoddingtons. They put ingtons on the ends of their words as well, which is also uncool. Darren, we're trying to do our TV show? I said, all shaking out of anger. What's it called? Loseroid City, he said, and everyone laughed again including Bunky, which I couldn't believe because it was so unfunny. No, it's called Darren's face is all crocodile-y and he's fat from too many fronkles, shouted back. No need to be so horrible, Barry loser, said Sharonella, and everyone in the crowd said yeah, even though it was Darren who'd started it, not me. Yeah. I've had enough of this. Shouted and ripped myself out of my costume, storming off with everyone watching and saying how much of a loser I was, Bunky included. Granny Harumpa-Duns. Ever since the whole vending machine mum thing, LD been trying to work out how to get back to being one of the coolest people in school. I'd had a think for about 3/4 of a minute and used my child geniusness to its full extent and come up with a brilliant and amazing plan. There was only one person that could help me with it, and that was Granny Harumpadunk. Mom's always saying that Granny has lots of issues. At first thought she was saying tissues and couldn't work out what the big problem was. Then I realized it was issues, and even though I don't know what it means, I kind of get that Granny is a bit weird. Ever since Granddad died, she's been funny. If you go near his old chain, she gets all angry. Not that you would go near it, because Invisigrandad is sitting there. Invisigrandad was my idea for making her feel better. It's his hat and glasses and clothes and stuff all puffed out with newspaper. It's pretty lifelike, apart from it doesn't snore and do massive burps. For someone who misses someone so much, she's still pretty grumpy with him. Oh Wilf, will you please stop doing those invisible blow-offs, she said the other day, knitting a trunk warmer for an elephant she's adopted by post, while me and Bunky were watching Future Rat Boy on her really old TV. Shoo, you're ruining Future Rat Boy, said Bunky. Ooh sorry, Blinky, said Granny. Stop invisiburping, Wilf, you're ruining Future Ratman for Blinky. She's always getting stuff like that wrong, and it took me about 12 hours to explain my genius plan to her, but by the end of Future Rat Boy she got the idea. Leave it to me, Barry, she said, and I put my hand up to high-five her and she granny kissed it. Barry fake nose. That's how I came to be walking to school wearing this bright yellow knitted woolen nose. You look like an idiot, said Bunky. I look like Future Rat Boy in the episode where his nose gets run over by a bus. I said. His nose was all flat and keel in that episode. Yours is fat and unkeel. Shut up, Bunky, I said, but it came out dud up, Dunky, because of my nostrils being blocked by all the wool. I hate Bunky even though he's my best friend in the whole wide world, amen. The first lesson was science with Mr. Hodgepodge, who has cross eyes and a bent finger, so when he points at someone it's hard to know who he's talking to. What's that monstrosity on your face, Barry loser? He shouted, pointing at Anton Mildew and looking at Face Noggles. It's my Future Rat Boy nose, said, but it came out dits dy ditcher dat doy dos. Well, take it off. You look like an anteater, he said, so I took it off and put it back on as soon as he looked away, which was immediately. Because it was so yellow and woolly, as looked from left to right to read what Mr. Hodgepodge was writing on the board, all I could see was my nose bobbling around in front of me, which I didn't mind because it blocked out my view of the cool girls. Ow, your fake nose is hitting my hair, said Tracy Pilchard, which was stupid because it wasn't and hair can't hurt. Ow, mine too, said Donatella. Then Sharonella said, yeah, mine is Wellington's, which did a chuckle through my nose about because she'd said Wellington's. It's not funny, Barry annoying nose, Darren Darrenofsky shouted, and everyone laughed, even Mr. Hodgepodge. Then Darren burped in my ear. Dat was dovely, thanks Darren, I said to confuse him, but I'm not sure it worked because of my blocked up nose and him being thick. At first break I was really excited about showing off my nose to everyone in the playground, so I ran out of science. The trouble was that with it bobbling around in front of me all yellowly, I couldn't see Anton Mildew's lunchbox that he'd left just lying in the middle of the hall, and I tripped over it and landed right outside the girls' toilets. "Serves you right for hurting my hair," said Tracy, walking past with her plastic jewelry all rattling. "Yeah, Sharonella's got loads of your woolly bogies in her perm," Donatella said. Sharonella just stood there, and from where I was lying I could look up her nostrils and see her actual bogies. "I told you to take that nose off, Barry Anteater," Mr. Hodgepodge said in art, where we were supposed to be drawing what was right in front of us. My picture was of a really long nose going off into the distance with the wall behind it, which is probably the most boring drawing in the history of the world. Amen. At lunch, Bunky didn't want to sit opposite me because of my nose taking up so much space, so in front of me there was just an empty chair. "Having lunch with your invisible friend, Barry Losernose?" said Darren, queuing up for his Frankel and chips. "Ha ha, yeah," chuckled Bunky, leaning over to Anton Mildew. "Look, Anton. Barry's having lunch with his invisible friend," he laughed. But Anton didn't join in because he actually has got an invisible friend and it gets jealous of other people's. Time goes slower the longer your nose is, and that afternoon was my slowest one ever times 10. Bunky tried to cheer me up on the walk home by ripping my nose off and putting it round his neck, pretending he was Granny Harumpidunk with one of her scarves. "Ooh, where did I put my glasses so I can watch Future Ratman?" he said, and I laughed for the first time all day, my head feeling light from the no-nose. Then Darren appeared behind us, all snuffly from running with his Frankel belly, and started throwing ring pulls at me and singing his loser song, which ruined my life all over again. Barry Longlegs. Because it had been sunny the day before, when I woke up the next morning had a tan everywhere except where my fake nose had been. I was worried Darren might call me Barry Palenose or something, so L decided LD distract him with one of my genius plans. Before my granddad got really old, his job was going round at midnight changing the broken light bulbs and lamp posts using stilts instead of a ladder. "Never trust a ladder, Barry," he'd shout down at me from his stilts, wobbling about and waving his arms, all the light bulbs dropping and smashing everywhere. When they sacked him he gave me the stilts, which is why I was walking to school with them right now. "Morning!" I shouted down at Bunky in my invisigrandad voice, and he looked around, but all he could see were stilt legs and no me. "Invisigrandad? Is that you?" he said, and I couldn't tell if he was serious. "Granny Harumpidunk told me you think she's unkeel," I said, trying to sound scary. "I'm sorry, Invisigrandad, I won't do it again," Bunky said, then he looked up at me and shouted, "Not race you to school," I said, and in about 3 steps I was there, Bunky running as fast as he could but still taking 9 hours. "What's all this crazy business?" said Mr. Hodgepodge when I came into the classroom. "It's my new look," I shouted down at him. "Keel times 10 or what?" "Outside now, loser," he shouted, pointing at Donatella and looking at Sharonella. "That's not fair," cried Donatella, and she burst into tears. Tracy Pilchard ran over, screeching, "Emergency group Huggingtons," and they all cuddled each other until Tracy Pilchard noticed Sharonella's new hairband and they started talking about that instead. That was about as good as the morning got for me, what with Mr. Hodgepodge explaining for the billionth time to the cool girls about his cross eyes and bent finger, then making me stand outside for the whole rest of the lesson like I was a tree. "Mr. Hodgepodge, it's raining," I shouted after 19 hours, even though it wasn't, but he was too busy telling Stuart Schmendricks to stop flicking his bogies at Jocelyn Twiggs to hear me. Darren, who sits in the back row, had turned his chair around and was staring at me through the glass. "Mr. Hodgepodge, it's Wayne ing," he mouthed in a loserish way, waving his arms around like branches, which got me worried that that was what I looked like, so for the rest of the lesson I kept quiet and made a story up in my head about a tree falling on him. At lunch I could see down into everybody's lunch boxes because of how tall I was, which was actually really boring. "Here, Ducky," Bunky was saying, throwing bits of food into my mouth but missing, half of it landing in Sharonella's hair, which was on top of her stupid head. Sharonella's got sandwiches and crisps in her hair, Barry's stupid legs, Tracy Pilchard shouted at me from the ground, and I was worried she could see the bogies up my nostrils. Ha ha, Barry's stupid legs, laughed Bunky and stepped on his toe with my stilt, then said sorry, then whispered not it was games in the afternoon, which was really easy because we were doing running. Work those stilts, loser. Mr. Coops the sports teacher was shouting through his megaphone, and felt pretty keel because usually he doesn't even know who I am. Watch this, Mr. Coops, Darren said, and he made his little legs go as fast as he could, but I still beat him easily with one step. No banana, Darrenovsky, shouted Mr. Coops, which is one of his favorite catchphrases. LV never seen him with any actual bananas though, so it's lucky no one ever runs fast enough to win one. On the way home with Bunky I was thinking how my day hadn't been the worst one of my whole life ever, when I stopped to cross the road for about a millisecond and looked down and saw that someone had stuck a poster to my leg poles. Darren was running off cackling, and seeing as no Darren's dad is a poster putter-upper because he came into school one Friday afternoon to talk all about it, I suppose it was him that must have put it there. Maybe you should just go back to being rubbish old Barry loser again, said Bunky. Thanks, Bunky, that makes me feel so much better, I said.